What's up, squad? It's your boy Knockout 360 here with another video for you guys. So as you can see, we're in the car, we're chilling. Well, I'm chilling because I'm cold as shit. We're supposed to get a bunch of snow this weekend. They said anywhere between 8 to 12 inches, which if you know anything about the South, that's going to shut the South down. Let me just adjust you guys here. That's going to shut the South down, especially Charlotte, man. So we're bracing for that, man. Get ready for that or whatever. Of course, you know that your boy's Charger will be here, safe and sound, relaxed. I'm not going to be on the road because my tires are probably about 85% done, so that's not a smart decision there at all. So we're in the car, so you know it's a car vlog. Let's talk about it, man. It's time for my oil change, and it's time for my girlfriend to get an oil change. Like I told you guys, she just bought a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Dope ass car, gorgeous car. It's the V6. It's not the SRT or the Trackhawk, anything crazy like that. But dope ass car, but she just hit about 5,200 miles on it. So this will literally be her first oil change from the time she purchased it to now. Of course, your boy's car is a little bit older than that, so I'm familiar in the game or whatever. But my question to you guys, and I guess I'm posing this to the car community in general, not just muscle car guys or supercar exotics or what have you. When is it time to get an oil change? Right? So, you know, you think about it, traditionally, everybody used to say every 3,000 miles. And when I say traditionally, I'm talking about probably prior to the 2000s, right? 1990s and prior to, it was always 3,000 miles. Every 3,000 miles, get your oil change. Every 3,500 miles, get your oil change. Every 3,000, get your oil change, right? Now, of course, cars were built differently back then. They were not built as efficiently as they are now. And even the oil itself was not built as efficient as it is now. I think back then, all they had was conventional oil, which I would assume is just like some basic gas liquid or whatever, you know, you just straightforward oil for the car. Of course, nowadays we've got, you know, conventional, we've got semi-synthetic, we've got synthetic, we've got everything, anything and everything you can imagine, right? And I know for you SRT guys and you ZL1 and you ZR1 guys out there, I'm sure you're using like a special blend of everything, right? Because your cars are, you know, those high performing cars. So I guess my question is how long do you guys go without an oil change? Now, me personally, with this being a V6, and I know the kind of oil that they use in this when they use semi-synthetic, and they use the 5 quarts of Pennzoil semi-synthetic oil. Now tell me if you guys are using the same thing with your Chargers and Challengers out there, but that's what Dodge puts in mind. I've never had anybody else change my oil except for Dodge, so it's always been official like a whistle, right? So Dodge puts in semi-synthetic Pennzoil oil into the car, and I get that, you know, every single time. Me personally, I will stretch my car out about 5,200 miles, 5,000 to probably, I'd say 5,000 to about 5,500 miles, right? So 5,000 to 5,500 miles is the sweet spot for me, in between there. And to be honest with you, probably a little less than that. I'd say 4,800 to about 5,000. I don't stretch it too far. I don't push this car too much because this is my daily driver, so I need my baby functioning in tip-top shape. So I'd say 4,800 to about 5,000 miles is where I draw the line when it's time to get an oil change. Now on my car has a gauge that tells you the oil life, right? So obviously it starts at 100% and gets all the way down. For you Dodge, and for you Dodge guys out there, you know that you know, your car will tell you how much oil or how much life your oil has or whatever. So in my case, for those of you out there who do drive a Dodge 2015 and up, I never let it get past 30%, right? So that's the absolute worst that it's ever been in this car, is right at 30%. Never been below that. I won't even chance it because I'm driving so far on a daily basis that it could be 30% on a Monday and I'm bullshitting, and then by Wednesday it's down to 24. You know what I'm saying? Just because of the amount of time that I'm driving, and then I fuck around and on my way to the dealership to get the oil change, that's when my shit breaks down. Now, I'm sure Dodge puts special measures in place so that even if you did run it down to like 2% or 5% or something like that, that you probably still have a little bit more oil to go. I can't see them saying, you know, if you hit 5% or 2%, your car is going to die. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's like, there are people out there who are not car guys like us, and they don't take care of their cars, let's just be honest, the way that we do. And they don't pay attention to their cars the way that we do. They start them up, they drive them, they come the fuck back home, and that's a wrap, right? So a lot of them would be conscious of the small things like getting your oil changed on a regular basis every 3,000 to 5,000 miles or what have you. So I would imagine that Dodge would probably put some kind of safety, measure in place to protect people like that. Like, hey, listen, you need to get your oil change immediately, right? My car has never given me any kind of, indication that it needed an oil change other than the oil life, and of course me checking it on a regular basis, which is something that I encourage you guys. Even though a lot of modern day cars come with gauges that'll tell you the oil life, it's always best to check it yourself, right? Because I had an issue with my tire pressure sensor in the back right to where it wasn't working. The tire looked fine, but the tire pressure sensor wasn't working. It was giving me a false read or something like that. And it turns out the tire essentially needed to be filled up with, nitrogen or whatever. So I say that to say it's always good to be able to get under the hood of your car and find out what's what. Check your coolant, check your windshield wiper fluid, check your oil, check everything that you can control. Obviously, you can't get in there and start fucking with the engine if that's not you. That's not me. I'm not that kind of guy, I'll tell you that right now. But I do check what I can check, and I do control what I can control, right? So definitely always get under the hood of your car and check it your damn self. Now, procedure for that is, from what I understand, you want to let your car sit for a little while. You don't want that oil to be hot, because there's a chance that, for one, you'll probably get a false reading because of just the fact that the oil is hot, it's been circulating. You want to let that sit, and that's going to give you an accurate reading as to how much oil you have in the car. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a little tip there or whatever. But my question is to you guys out there, how often are you getting the oil change? Do you feel the necessity, because of the kind of cars that we drive, in a sense that they're high performance, that it's a necessity to get your oil changed more often than 5,000 to 7,000? Are you still living by that old conventional idea that you need to get your oil changed every 3,000 miles? And if you are, do you feel like you're just kind of throwing money away? Because a lot of oil manufacturers and oil companies, and just oils in general, motor oils, are rated nowadays anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 miles, right? Like, I've seen some oil. I was just in AutoZone recently, or Advanced Auto Parts, and I saw some oil. I think it was I don't want to say that. It may have been oh man, I can't even think of it, but it was rated for up to 10,000 miles. Now, I don't think that was for a performance car or anything like that, but it was rated for up to 10,000 miles without an oil change, right? So that's something you got to be mindful of and take into consideration, because you think to yourself, if I'm getting my oil changed every 3,000 miles, and in theory, this oil should last me 10,000, I'm literally throwing my money away almost 3 times over, right? So it's one of those things where, are you guys getting your oil changed every single 3,000? Are you sticking to the 5,000 to 7,000? Are you sticking to the 3,000 to 5,000 mile marker there, or are you getting the oil change there? And if so, what oil are you using? What's the best oil to use for our kind of cars? I'm speaking specifically to the Dodge and Mopar guys. What's the best oil to use for our cars? I've heard a lot of people, quite a few guys in my car club are using Royal Purple. I'll put a picture of their shit right here in case you haven't heard it. I've heard that Royal Purple is almost like a high performance oil. And of course, they do their oil changes themselves, because, when you go to a shop like Dodge or Chevy or NTB, 9 times out of 10, they have a preference as to what they use, and they're not going to use anything but that. So you're going to end up doing that shit yourself as far as your oil change is concerned. So what brands are you using? I've heard Royal Purple is like a high performance. I've heard, there are certain oils, Valvoline, obviously Pennzoil. I don't know what specific brand of Pennzoil or what specific model of Pennzoil they're using in my car. I just know it's a semi-synthetic. And I get my oil changed every 5,000, right at 4,800 to 5,000 miles. What are you guys using? Are you using semi-synthetic? Are you using full synthetic? Are you still using conventional? Most of you guys are probably not using conventional. I'll throw that out there anyway for all you guys out there, but 9 times out of 10, you're probably using a semi-synthetic blend. I don't think anyone's using full synthetic. Maybe you are. I don't know. For you guys that's driving the SRTs and the SSs and the ZO1s and the ZR1s, I mean, are you guys using full synthetic? What's the blend that you guys use, and what benefit do you see using that over another brand? You know what I mean? That's just kind of my question that I have for you guys. This really wasn't a long video, just something that was on my mind, something that we were talking about in my car club chat. And of course, when you bring up something in the car club chat, it's just, everyone's got an opinion on something. Everyone's got an opinion on something, man, and it can really light up the chat really quickly. So it's one of those things where it's different strokes for different folks. Everybody has their preference, but what are you doing? What is your method of madness as it pertains to getting your oil changed? Are you one of those guys that wants to play it safe and get it every 3,000? If you are getting it every 3,000, do you feel like you're just throwing money away? Because like I said, these oils are rated for 5 to 7 and even 7 to more thousands of miles. So are you really throwing that money away, or Are you getting your money's worth? Do you understand what you're doing? Is there a method behind your madness, or is it just one of those things where my dad did it and my dad's father did it and I'm gonna do it too every 3,000? For you guys that's holding out a little bit longer, you know, the 5,000 to 7,000 guys, 5,000 to 7,000 mile guys, you know, what's your rationale behind holding out that long? And do you see a significant difference in your car's performance as it gets to the end of that journey, you know, as it gets to the 5,000 to 7,000 mile mark, you know, and just getting to the point where I guess things are just, you know, it's just one of those things where it's time to go ahead and change it. You feel what I'm saying? Talk to your boy. Let me know. How do you feel? I know a lot of drivers are in tune with their cars, so they know what their cars is doing and what their cars is not doing, what their cars are capable of, what their cars are capable of on a full tank of gas, let alone some fresh oil in the car. I always feel that when I get an oil change in my car, it's just, you know, that much more, that much more pep in the step, you know. And maybe that's just me, maybe that's just a placebo effect, but it's one of those things where I think it's worth mentioning. I think a fresh, you know, tank of oil and a fresh tank of gas goes a long way with the performance of the car. And then of course the longevity, and that's another thing as far as longevity is concerned. For you guys that do hold out to the 5,000 to 7,000 mile mark per oil change, are you afraid that maybe going forward, you know, you may wear out some parts a little bit faster than others in the sense that you're starving your car instead of giving it that full, you know, that new, I guess, refill of fresh oil, and you're still using it in high performance situations, you're still pushing it? Do you feel that longevity wise that'll be beneficial? You know, and even for you guys that's getting the oil changes every 3,000 miles, from a longevity perspective, what do you think? You know, my biggest thing, and I'll tell you my kind of experience, is that with my car, like I said, I've noticed that once it gets to the 5,000 mark, I feel like it's getting a little sluggish. And that's when I know it's time to go ahead and get it changed. For all you Dodge guys, once it gets to about 30% on the oil life, it's time for me to go ahead and change it, because, you know, I just feel that it gets sluggish, right? I think that the 5,000 mile is kind of the sweet spot between best bang for your buck, yet best performance and efficiency when it comes to the car. And the reason I say that is just because of how cars and oil is built nowadays. Cars and oil have gone through major updates and upgrades since the 90s, since the 80s, and they don't need to be changed every 3,000 miles. I really believe that you're just throwing money away at that point, because you've got so much more wear in your oil. It's one of those things, like if your tires are rated at 40,000 miles and you get rid of them at 15, it's like, fam, you're really throwing money away. Like, you've got so much more in those tires, you've got so much more in the oil. And I never push my car beyond its limits. In other words, you're never going to see me holding out to 7,000 to 8,000 miles on my car. That's just a no-go. But I do want to get the best bang for my buck. And not only that, but I want the oil to do what it's designed to do. I want it to work, and I want it to last. And I think that 5,000 mile mark is the sweet spot right there. Once I hit 5K, boom, it's time to go ahead and get a refill. You know what I'm saying? And then that allows me to go on without being in the damn shop every, you know, 2 months, because I drive a lot and I drive hard. You know, even though this is a V6, I drive the shit out of this baby, and I drive it a lot. So it's just a sweet spot between that. You know what I'm saying? It's just a sweet spot. I think it's a sweet spot between, you know, best bang for your buck, yet efficiency and effectiveness with the car itself. So that's just my mentality behind that. How do you guys feel? A couple questions I want to throw at you. You know, what kind of oil are you using? Are you using semi-synthetic, full synthetic? Still fucking with the conventional shit? What brand? What's the best brand of oil to use? For you Dodge guys out there, talk to your boy. Tell me what brand of oil you're using for your car that you've seen the best performance out of. Question number 2, how often are you getting the oil change? You know what I'm saying? Are you getting it changed every 3,000 like it was back in the day? Are you getting it changed every 5,000 to 7,000? Are you pushing that shit to 8,000 to 10,000? Talk to your boy. You know, how often are you getting it changed? And I guess, you know, what's your rationale behind that, man? What's your mentality behind that? I'm curious to hear that myself, because I'm open. You know what I'm saying? I've had this car for a little over 70,000 miles, so I pretty much know what she likes, but I'm always open to suggestions, because, you know, anything is possible, man, and I could be doing this shit completely wrong. But, you know, with that being said, talk to your boy, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what's going on. Just communicate with me, let me know where you stand on this issue here. I'm gonna go ahead and get in the house, man. It's cold as shit. So as always, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.